Hi, this is Robbie Thomas, your Bay Area downsizer. I just wanted to focus on the toughest decisions when downsizing your home. If you're thinking of downsizing, you come across a list of tough things that you have to talk about with yourselves and with your spouses or partners. And that is something that I wanted to address. Let's get into it. So the toughest decisions while downsizing is the first. I penned it down to 7 points. The first one is the emotional attachment. So you may have lived in that house for 10, 15, even if it's 5 years, you've put in your heart, your money, and you've vested your time into building that place called home. And it's not just about the money or the structure of the house, but it is where you find your peace. So letting go of that emotionally is very hard. And if you're more than one person who owns that house together, then you have a lot of memories which are stuck into that house, attached to that house. And it's very hard to come to that point of separating from that emotional quotient. So the what I have seen over the years is that if there are two people involved and they own the house together, one of them arrives at the conclusion first, while the other takes longer. So the best way is to actually follow a system, bring to focus what really matters, and then proceed to having that real conversation with each other or the parties involved, and then deciding to actually let go of that house because they're downsizing. The number two thing which I have found is the furniture and the furnishings. And I've said this in the first point, when you're so attached to that house, you have custom made or bought all the furnishings and the furnitures that match the walls, that match the the living area or the the patio area or any room for that matter, matching with the paint colors and all that. You've gone into extreme customization, and you may not want to depart from it, but you also have the choice of taking it with you. Now, that's a very tough decision right there, because you'll be more than willing to take it initially to the new surrounding, but there's nothing called a downsized furniture into a smaller home, because it has to be right sized. So if the size of the furniture, you probably might not need a L section inside your small home, which is probably one third the size of the current home. So you're basically going to a smaller square footage, and the longer furniture will not fit in, or it'll be very odd. So the decision then becomes, do I give it away? Do I throw it away? Do I sell it? And that adds more complexity in trying to make that decision to get rid of the furniture or the furnishings. So that is the next big thing. Well, the solution to that is you start with the things that you really don't need. And most of those things which are kind of emotionally attached to are usually in the attic space if you have an attic. And especially if you're downsizing and if it's an older home, most of these homes have attics. So once you start with the attic space, then you move to the garage, then you move to the more intimate areas like your uh, big ensuite room. By that time, you have passed through so much of micro decision making to get rid of stuff, that you are kind of more easy on yourself to let go of the very personal things. Okay, then the next thing that I've seen, the toughest thing to do is um, making a decision to let go of the house itself and not the home, because home is where your heart is, as the saying goes. You're taking yourself to a new house and making that your home. The only way that you can do that while you're downsizing, or you've made a decision to downsize, is to detach yourself from that feeling of that anxiety of knowing that you are letting it go to another person or people who are going to enjoy that house just like you did when you first bought it. That is not an easy decision. It's one of the toughest decisions because it has to be between all parties, the spouses, if at all, and they have to decide to let somebody else enjoy that current house. That is a tough one, but it helps. Then the next one would be, in usually if more than one person is involved, it takes more than two sittings, multiple sittings to sit together and actually decide who takes the lead on what decision. For example, it may be the timeline, it may be the material inside the house, it may be the how much you're going to downsize, how big a house are you going to look into. These conversations must happen on a frequent basis, but one must take the lead, not both. Because what happens is if two people start taking a lead on these decisions, they'll never reach anywhere and it adds to more confusion and nothing gets done. And that's what happens. And this is why the downsizing cycles are much, much longer. It usually takes 24 months before, from the first thought of let's move to a smaller house, downsize, to the time that actually sell the property. And by then, the real estate cycle has gone multiple times up and down, and that also affects your decision making because you're inbound information that stops you from having some clarity. Because absence of clarity, you have confusion. So must let the one person who's more critical thinking take the lead on that, but only only through a proper understanding. Okay. Then the next one, which I've seen, and that is the biggest elephant in the room, is how much money will we actually net after everything. It's not just the real estate side of it, but it's also the moving costs, it's the packaging costs, the timeline, and if you have a health issue, then the appointments with the doctors, um, stuff like that has to be factored in. So, for that to happen, you must have a seasoned real estate agent who understands, appreciates, and empathizes with your situation. And once that is done, the realtor will then, if they're experienced, as I said, they will direct you to the attorneys. If it may, you may be in a living trust or whatever kind of trust, or not in a trust, then there are tax implications. So you must have a CPA involved who you can consult to figure out how much you may owe in taxes, because every transaction at point of sale attracts some kind of tax in a shape or form. Then the other thing is, if you're in certain states, like say for example in California, Proposition 19 helps you port your tax basis to any county. So you can figure out which county you want to go to. What about the weather conditions? If you go to the southern California, it's more hot, it's more humid. If you go to the north of California, it's more cooler. And if you have health issues like arthritis or something that affects your body, you have to make the decision prior to, or do the research before you make the decision, prior to making the decision to actually sell the house. I hope this has helped you. If you need anything at all for a no obligation consultation, reach me at 510-374-2264. This is Robbie Thomas, Bay Area Downsizer. At some point in the near future, I will have a booklet which you could possibly download, and you can fill out a worksheet for yourself, which you could use to help you arrive at these decisions. Thank you and have a wonderful day.